Welcome to the Blackburn End Podcast. I tell you what, we are getting used to this. It still feels good to be a Rovers fan, and we're getting all these points. It just feels good. But let's get into the headlines. So Rovers made the windy trip to Hull to face a team that have a new manager in waiting. And in those stormy conditions, the lads find a way to win and come away with the victory and all 3 points. Rovers continue their trips east as we now face Sheffield Wednesday away at Hillsborough. And it's a return for Kaminsky as it rounds off the week as Luton visit Ewood. But all of that plus we have the proud moment of the 700th game in a row where we've had an academy product in the matchday squad. You know, I think we're all very proud of that. But Mark, after this weekend, I have a new hatred for Sheffield. I'll get into that. But how was your weekend?
I'm absolutely buzzing. I am going to be honest. I am absolutely buzzing. I cannot believe what's going on. But Mike, I can't get it out of my head. So I am going to have to play this. I hope it works because everyone else needs to have it stuck in their head. Tell you what that's done. That's played in my AirPods. Tough. You're having it again. Hey, first name Sondre. He's better than Rodri. There we go.
Yes. It was a great game. Obviously, we'll start with that whole game. I'll get into the Sheffield thing a bit later on. But we'll start with that whole game straight off the bat. Let's play the match reaction audio.
Well, Mark, I managed to mess up. I'm not going to lie to you. I thought I recorded a match reaction last night. I was at a wedding. I'd managed to get some information, but I think I'd just talked to my phone without actually pressing record. So I don't know what I had to say because I'd had plenty to drink, but it was something along the lines of, what a win. It's great that we're getting these wins. We're just finding a way to get results. You know, you look at the stats, you look at the conditions, the fact that, you know, I know that they're not the best team, but they've got a manager in waiting. But we managed to get the win. It's a game where last year we probably, well, not last year, the year before, we may have lost that one, but we're just grinding it out, getting the job done. Just really, really chuffed, and I'm just so proud of the lads that they're getting, you know, the praise that they are getting because it is well deserved. I just hope that we still remain under the radar and no one comes knocking for any of our players because at the moment, going into January, I think quite a few of them are going to be looked at. But yeah, great stuff, mate, and we'll break it down on the pod.
We're going up. We're going up.
Tell you what. 2 wins for Lancashire, no wins for Yorkshire. Can we make that 3 on Tuesday, please? That'll ding-dang do for me.
Well, you seem very happy. I just couldn't believe I didn't press record. I was talking to my phone. It must have been for about 2 minutes. And then I just put my phone away. I didn't think anything of it. And then I went in the morning and it wasn't there. So I was like, okay, better quickly record another one. But what was your initial when you came away? Obviously, we heard the match reaction and audio there. What was your initial thoughts at full time? Really,
I think, given the conditions, it was one of them games where you just thought, get this one in the bag, move on. But again, it was just the same old story: professionalism, well drilled, never really felt in danger. I thought actually the first half. I'm going to contradict myself here. The first half was probably the weakest performance out of the last few. I thought we gave them quite a few chances. But then as the game went on, as the second half came, I just felt really comfortable again. And I'm finding it more and more that I'm just feeling like, do you know what? I'm not saying we're going to keep winning every week. Of course we're not. But I'm looking at it and thinking, actually, this is us. This is us now. This is the pattern of our games. Yeah, we'll have games where they do score one and we haven't got enough firepower. We know that, all these kind of things. But I think this is us now. We've shown that we can defend within the width of the box. We've got a real team ethic. Doesn't matter who's playing in that 11. And my initial thoughts were, I know, obviously, my actual initial thoughts were, that's it, we are going up. 7 points off top. With 3 points when we beat Pompey. So that's then 4. We'll beat the Dingles, so then that's down to 1. We are going up. I think my more measured and honest opinion is I think we are a really, really good, solid championship team. And I've never felt like that with us for a long time. I felt like we could be really good, but also really crap under Thomason. Under Mowbray, I felt like we should be better than we actually were. And then we fell off a cliff, didn't we? Right now, I can see a way that this continues for a long time. And I don't mean results-wise. I just mean in terms of the solidity of the team.
Yeah, I mean, I had to watch the 90-minute replay, and I watched it with knowing that the result was coming, obviously, and I looked at the performance, and I felt like we rode our luck a little bit at times, as you do in games, and I looked at the stats, and it looked like Hull were better stats-wise, but I didn't feel like that during the game. I mean, yes, Pears had to make some saves, but it was one of those games where I looked at the stats and I didn't feel like it told the story of the game, as much as what other stats have done in the past. I thought that, again, we're looking at the likes of Beck and so on and thinking they're just a very talented player. And then Tronstad, Baker's the one that stepped in. He was the one that I don't think people necessarily thought would step in. They thought it might be Buckley, but everyone just looked relatively solid. And we've used the term disciplined, and they did look disciplined, but there was no one that really stood out. The goal was a lovely goal, as we know. But Pears, again, we're having to rely on him. Who would have thought that last season that we were saying that Pears was keeping us in games, but he was making some solid saves. But yeah, it was definitely a game where I came away with it thinking that's a game we would have lost easily 2 years ago, maybe even last year. And to keep another clean sheet and to put in a performance where we just get the goal and just shut up shop and just let them do what they need to do, but trust in ourselves, trust in each other, trust in your teammates. And yeah, we go and see the game out. I didn't. It's really hard for me to say I didn't panic, but I'm just going off what I saw on that replay, and I didn't think there was a time really to panic.
No, like I say, first half hour was the most chances I felt like we've conceded for a while. I mean, the conditions were horrific. They became comical in the second half. There was one where Pears cleared it and it almost went back over his head. It was like we were playing with, I don't know what you used to call those balls, Mike, that you pick up from the garage. We used to call them a flyaway.
Floaters, yeah.
Yeah, that's something very different. But it felt like it was comical, and it kind of was the team that managed that best. But we never really put ourselves in danger. The games like that where it's horrific, you can play back passes that are too short. You can do all manner of things to mess it up. And we never really looked in danger. I was sat watching it with a friend, and we were talking about, and he listens to the pod, and he said, "Do you never mentioned Danny Bart between you once the week before?" And fair play, I that's full credit to Danny Bart. Same again. I thought Hyam was again outstanding on that right-hand side of the centre-half. I thought the way that we are so drilled is... I know when we talked about Thomason's Rovers, we talked about the club having an identity. We talked about the academy playing the same way as the first team. But it was... They knew their roles, but it wasn't necessarily disciplined. And we were able to get at us, but it was nice to watch at times. I just feel like now this is such a solid unit of what looks like good pros. And when you think how easy we were to beat last season at times before he came in, we've not had a dramatic shift of personnel. And he's made this team into one that's so organised, know their roles so well, and actually know the roles of the team. So if they step in or they move position, they're able to just slot in, and it doesn't seem to affect the way the team functions as a unit. I'm just so impressed, if I'm being honest, with the organisation, the effort, the work rate, the determination. It's just what you love to see.
Yeah, I mean, I looked at it and I was trying to find a player that I could point at and say, well, they really stood out above anyone else. And I thought the left-hand side looked quite strong with Hedges and Beck. I thought Britain had a decent game. As a partnership, I thought Heim and Bart played well. Tronstad was Tronstad. Would you say Tronstad was the standout player if there was one?
I mean, he's the one on everyone's lips, but I think that's mainly because he's finally got a song he deserves. I thought Tronstad played well because Baker played the role slightly differently than Travis, and I don't know if that was by design or not, but he was slightly further over, and he was on the left-hand side, wasn't he, most of the game, rather than the right. So I thought Tronstad doing that role really well was interesting, because I've questioned I've said if you've got a limitation of Tronstad, it's his athleticism, and I thought he slotted in for Britain really well, which you've got to do on that right-hand side, because Britain's our main outlet more than, the left back tends to come and make it a 3, don't they, most of the time. So yeah, probably Tronstad. I thought Campbell was quite quiet. He looked
I
like
thought
he was
Hashi and Campbell were quite quiet at times. I mean, they just they seem to be isolated a little bit.
They were a little bit, and I think Campbell got a bit of a knock, didn't he, against Leeds, and he looked like he was carrying that. Bex, we know, is nursing a back injury, and that looked like he was a little bit a couple of times. So for me, I've talked about some of all parts, but actually this one looks a little bit different. I think there was some walking wounded in that team. The conditions were horrific, and I thought to still be able to navigate their way through that game with relative ease as the game went on was the most impressive thing, rather than an individual.
Yeah, it's just another game that we can just put down to a sum of all parts, and we're just collecting them. We're collecting them, and we haven't had a major change in the starting lineup so far. It's all been little changes here or there, and people slotting in, and that's been quite good. And I just came away from it just thinking it is a game we would normally have lost, but I think because everyone has played together and there are only little changes, I think there's a lot of trust there. There's a lot of trust in the tactics. There's a trust in what's happening on the pitch. Players are understanding each other's roles. And when it's not quite going your way, you just go into like this muscle memory of, right, this is my role. This is what I do. Let's just go back to basics. And that performance felt like it was one of those, let's just trust the process. Let's just keep doing it, and we'll get the results. I mean, let's talk about the goal. It was a lovely play, wasn't it?
It was, and I think what you've said there is a really good way of putting it. I think it's really, you're right, muscle memory. So we still say muscle memory, don't we, with, one touch or one strike and all these kind of things. But you're right. I think they're now doing this without having to think about it. They've been drilled that much. Probably a wrong phrase, but they've been coached that well that they know where they need to be at all times, which kind of brings into question previous managers at certain times, I think. But anyway, yeah, I think in terms of that goal, we know that we look to use Britain as an outlet. He's got quite a few assists. This probably goes down as another assist ultimately, but it was a great team bit of football again. People are calling us Barcelona Rovers again, but there was also a crispness to the passing, and in those conditions, I know they kept it quite low, but that made it all the more impressive. This is not about Rovers sitting in and parking the bus. This is about actual good football. This is about players trusting their pass, trusting the person that they're passing it to's touch, trusting that making the right decisions. And then ultimately Britain trusting that, I know where I need to go. He knew he had the license to get up there, to go and get on the end of that. It felt like it was something that was worked on again.
Very much so. Very much so. And it's another Eustace masterclass. That's how it feels. I'm looking at the WhoScored.com ratings right now. And everyone just performed quite similar to everyone else. And it just falls into that John Eustace tactical masterclass. And that's a really bonus because we felt like we've lost games in the past because of certain decisions, subs not coming at the right time and so on. And it's just nice that we're not actually having to talk about managerial decisions and we're riding the crest of the wave. Like you say, there's losses are going to come. You know, we can't go all season unbeaten. Nice that we're now starting to get some unexpected results like against Leeds, and we're starting to get results like we did at the weekend when sometimes you just think, oh, do you know what, we could easily have lost that one. I mean, looking at the reaction now on the Rovers Twitter, top effort from the lads once again today, really well seen out. Not the most thrilling of games, but we did enough, and it's another 3 points on the board. This might be one of the best victories as we seem to be under pressure on the back foot and we still won. So that's a really good point to make. Exceptional organisation today as a spectacle. It was a dreadful game, probably due to the weather, but what a steal. I loved Pears and Beck's performances today. It's just the same kind of comments every single game. And I think Rovers fans are really getting behind this side, and you can tell when you see these comments. I mean, you did the 3-word reactions. Have you got any favourites there?
Yeah. I have got We Tame the Tigers from Fat West 78. Les Campbell, great team performance. Dave Turner, 77. Class game management. I think he's absolutely right. And I don't know if he's referring to the players or the manager, maybe both. But like when you talked about a standout performer, I think if they were rating the manager, he was the standout performer once again. And marker, it's Mark JA79. Love this because we love a pun. Storm past Hull.
Love it. So
yes.
I always ask you the question, 1-word answer. Was you happy with the performance?
Very.
So I'm a little bit mixed on it. I'm expecting us to put in awesome performances and dominate teams now. Yeah, I'm happy. It's easy to be happy. I think if you lose that 1-0 with exactly the same performance, you're coming away with a much different attitude, aren't you? But the fact we did get the win, it just feels like it's one way you just say, you know what, we did the job. We got it done on awful conditions. Let's go home and, get ourselves ready for the next game.
And that was it for me. I think I based it on the fact that the conditions were absolutely farcical, really. So the fact that we still managed to put that performance in between them, that's why I said very. Had that been a lovely Saturday afternoon with the sun out, happens all the time in Blackburn, obviously, it might have been a different story, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, we move on from that. We're 6th in the league with a game in hand, so things are going well. But we go back across the Pennines to Sheffield and Hillsborough this time. At the time of recording, it will be this. It's tomorrow, but actually, when the podcast goes out, it is this evening. So, what's your thoughts on this one? So, midweek away, 9th in the league, Sheffield Wednesday. Where do you think we're going with it?
Well, I think we owe them one because the performance at 3 games out, was it, from the end of last season, when if we'd have got a draw, we'd pretty much guaranteed our safety. I'm not going to mention individual players, but there's certain players that let themselves down that day, and there's certain players that shifting like we have been doing and not like they did that day. I also think I questioned John Eustace that day, and I actually, as much as I'm praising him now, I pinned a lot of that on him. I thought the setup of a do not lose actually was the wrong way to go in that game. We haven't got a great record recently, though, against Sheffield Wednesday, that game aside either. But we did beat them 5-0, didn't we, in 2020? I want to be more optimistic than I think I am. I don't know, Mike, if my pessimism a little bit here is coming from the fact that you just keep thinking this can't keep going on, or whether it's as a result of the form against Sheffield Wednesday, or I'm just going to hark back now. I know we beat Middlesbrough during midweek, but we didn't play Portsmouth the weekend before. So I say that we haven't won a midweek game for nearly 12 months now. So I I'd take a draw.
Yeah, so that's the thing. I can't, there's a theory, isn't there, to do with expecting. It's like in a roulette where you just keep putting when red keeps coming up, and eventually it's going to come up black, and it definitely feels like one of those situations where the wheels are going to come off at some point, and we need to make sure that we're ready for a tough game. Was the tough game Hull? And then this one, that we get away with, and maybe this one, it doesn't quite go as well. Sheffield Wednesday are a decent side. Like you say, it was a bit embarrassing when we played them that time. And what was the guy that I really couldn't stand? Oh, I can't remember his name, the midfielder. But anyway, they've got some some characters, they've got some decent players. But yeah, it's a game where it's a midweek game. It's away. We've had some good results. If we got a draw, I'll be really happy. I'm not bothered about the performance on this one. It's all about functionality for me. Let's get this result. Let's get something and go home with something ready to face Luton. Can you see there being many changes in the starting lineup?
Not really. I mean, I've just recorded the preview with the Wednesday Till I Die pod. Really knowledgeable guy. So he told me that they were really poor against Preston. That Danny Roll came out of the game and said we need a reaction in the next game. So he's expecting them to fly at us, and he said that doesn't really suit them though. Barry Bannon's back. Obviously, we all know Barry Bannon's a quality footballer, but he likes to operate in between the lines, and I think we're really good at not allowing that space. I think when we defend, we bring Britton and Pickering, or Britton and Beck, on the line at the edge of the box. The two centre halves then come on the line of the D. Tronstad and Travis, it will undoubtedly be. Then fill those gaps so to block the lines, and they're really close together. So Bannon shouldn't be a factor in this game. My one worry is Josh Windass, because Josh Windass, I don't really rate him, Mike, but he seems to bag against us every bloody time, no matter who he's playing for. So yeah. But
I mean, I'm looking at the form. You've got two teams here that have, they're unbeaten in 4. They're both performing probably better, you would kind of expect. I mean, we've still got 5 more points than them in a game in hand, but it's away. It's a difficult atmosphere. It's a place that, that you don't expect to go and get anything. So, yeah, I'd definitely take the draw. I mean, I don't like predicting, and I'm always been a realist, and I have to just go off the fact that we are due a difficult game like a Coventry away, and we can't keep pulling rabbits out of hats. So I think it's going to be a difficult one. I really do, and let's link in with the Luton game that we've got after that. For you. Which game for you is more likely to get points out of, Luton at home or Sheffield Wednesday away? For me, I think we're more likely to get something out of Luton at home than Sheffield Wednesday away midweek.
Yeah, I've just had a look, Mike. I think it was Will Vaulks that you hated.
Oh God,
in memory.
That was it.
But he's gone to Oxford, so we're all right.
Has he? That's good. Horrible man.
Yeah. But what that does mean, Mike, is we've played him at home this season and he's got away with it without us having a pop at him. So we'll remember that. So I don't know, because I know Luton are having a shocker at the moment and there's talk Edwards is going to get potted. But at the end of the day, they've just come down from the Premier League. I know they probably had a shock promotion. So does that play into it? And they didn't spend fortunes. But, for God's sake, Amari Bell plays for them every week. So they can't be that good. But I still think this is a bit like I'm saying about us, that at some point, like you'd said, perfect analogy again, it's red. At some point, it's going to fall on black. I feel like that with Luton. I feel like they're in a false position. I'm not saying they should be storming the league, but I think Luton are a better team than Sheffield Wednesday, is what I'm trying to say. And I would say that, therefore, yeah, we're at home, but at the beginning of the season, I'd certainly, before the season started, I'd have took a point against Luton. I think I'm starting to reevaluate us as a club. I'm starting to think
that's the trouble, isn't it? It's each week is different now.
Starting to go away to Sheffield Wednesday. I'm thinking the minimum. We should be getting a draw. But I can see where we go and win it. I really can. Whereas I think Luton, it depends how the game goes. But I think if we drew against Sheffield Wednesday and drew against Luton, I'm probably going to be more disappointed with the Sheffield Wednesday draw than the Luton one.
That's the thing. As you're talking to me, I'm looking at the league table, and you see Luton in 18th, 19 points. Sheffield Wednesday 9th, 26 points. Then you've got us on 31 points. You know, the difference isn't massive between the clubs that between Sheffield Wednesday and Luton compared to Sheffield Wednesday and us. But I feel like if we can go into the Sheffield Wednesday game and come out of it with everyone's healthy and the performance isn't too bad and we haven't necessarily embarrassed ourselves, that the confidence is there to go then to play Luton at home and do the job there. But sometimes the thing is with Rovers, historically, we've always needed that embarrassing result to kick us up the arse. We had it against Fulham that time, and then we went on a major run. You know, Coventry as well, because since the Coventry game, our performances have been so much better. So I don't mind us having a loss now and again because it does wake us up. It does get us fired up, and it seems like we are that team now that everyone is so close that sometimes you need a common enemy, and if you keep winning and keep getting these results, eventually, you know, maybe the confidence and arrogance comes in. I don't think we are that kind of team, but there could be something that comes in. And I don't want that. I want us to be humbled now and again because it does wake us up.
Yeah. Do you know what? I felt that a little bit in the first 20 minutes at Hull. I'm not saying going as far as saying I think we forgot who we were and what we do well, but I think, I mean, the conditions will have played a factor, of course they will. I know I've said that, but I do think there was an element of we're better than these, and the only reason we are better than teams if we beat them is because of our teamwork and our work ethic and our sticking to a plan. Now, if you look at the recent result, to be fair, Sheffield Wednesday, obviously because of where they are in the league, but have had similar games to us, but have had far better results than Luton. So I'll just go through them. So Sheffield Wednesday beat Norwich 2-0. They lost away at Sheffield United 1-0. No disgrace in that, really. A 1-1 draw with Cardiff. That's a poor result at home. They beat Hull 2-0 away. They beat Derby 2-1 away. And they drew 1-1 with Preston. But you look at the Luton results here, particularly against teams that we've just played. They beat Cardiff 1-0 at home, fine. They got beat 5-1 at Middlesbrough. They beat Hull 1-0 at home. So at home, they're quite strong here. But away, they've lost 3-0 then to Leeds. They've lost 4-2 at Norwich. And then back at home, they've drawn 1-1. So away from home, they are not travelling well. They are being absolutely humbled. The flip side of that is Middlesbrough, Leeds and Norwich will all have played on the front foot. Whereas I don't know if we'll play quite like that. So is it that they're playing away from home, they're struggling? Or is it that actually the teams that they're playing, they're struggling against teams that go at them? You can't quite tell from those results.
No, it's difficult. And sometimes we change the way that we play as well. You know, there's sometimes where we go for it. And then there's other times where we just seem to sit back, soak it up and let whatever happen. And that's where obviously Eustace comes in and does his tactical masterclass, as we call it. I feel like, I mean, we've talked about the word rotation so many times this season. It just doesn't seem to come. There just never seems to be a prediction. I try and predict every single time, this is going to be the game that we actually rotate, and then he doesn't. So are we going to see any major rotation in these games?
I think it'll be purely fitness based. I think he's got his main starting 11 in his mind. We can probably all name it bar one or two. I think, to be fair, the starting 11 that he had at weekend is bar Travis is probably the one he would have. And I think that's the one he'll want to put out on Tuesday. It's the one he'll want to put out on Saturday. It will all depend on the injuries because it looked like Campbell had was feeling the effects of that ankle. I think it was not. And it looked like Beck was feeling his back a little bit. But if Pickering's not fit, and apparently, that's why he wasn't on the bench, then Beck's going to have to step up and play again. Hedges, potentially. You know, if he's worried about the threat of one of those two teams and Pickering's fit, then he could come back in. But I'll be honest, I think other than Lewis Baker out and Travis in, it'll be the same again.
I'm looking at the squad now, and I think it's if he could actually just go back to his standard starting lineup, I think he'll do it. I think the Luton game's interesting because obviously Kaminski's coming back, and we know that he's a cracking goalkeeper. And I've looked at a lot to do with Luton recently, and all their fans are saying, you know, he's a cracking goalkeeper, but he's got his limitations. But he's getting man of the match for them. He's keeping them in games. I just hope he doesn't have a cracker against us.
Well, I want the Thomas Kaminski that played against Portsmouth to turn up, if I'm being honest.
Exactly.
I almost forgot about that until the weekend.
Exactly. I mean, yeah, we don't know. We don't know. All I know is I absolutely hate Sheffield now. I'm going to quickly tell that story.
Yeah, tell me.
So I went to a wedding this weekend. So it's in North Hallerton. It's about an hour and a bit north of Sheffield. And yeah, so decided that because I haven't got a car at the moment, my car's not arrived yet. So we're just using the wife's car, which is just a little electric car. So if you're going to travel 4 hours north, probably best not doing it a small electric car. But wise man Mike decided, yes, we will. We managed to get to Meadow Hall to do a little bit of shopping, try to charge it. Charger wouldn't happen. So I thought, right, I'll just move it to the next charging point, moved it along, stuck it on charge, finally worked, great, charging, going to Meadow Hall, do some shopping, got no signal. So carry on shopping, and then suddenly I get some signal and there's a beep saying that it's not charging properly. So I'm like, oh no, like, you know, I've got a wedding to get to. So we say, okay, well, let's go back to the car and we'll move the charging point to the Starbucks around the corner, which is actually right by Hillsborough. And it's got a good charging point there that's 350 kilowatt, charge the car really quick, bang on. Get back to the car, got a parking ticket. I'd moved it into a disabled electrical charging bay, but because it wasn't well signed and with where I was, I just didn't see it and just put it into the next one. So 100 quid fines. I'm absolutely apoplectic. I'm fuming, hating Sheffield, thinking, right, I'm done with them. So we go then to this charging point. Every light's red. The battery's at like 4 miles. I'm thinking, you know, I've got to get. I'm looking. We're going to be late for the wedding, which again, like I say, is an hour and a half away. Finally get to the Starbucks, and the charging point isn't in Starbucks. It's behind Starbucks, so you can't get in. So you have to go back on the one way. So I'm going all the way around. Now I'm effing and blinding. Anyone that looks like they're from Sheffield are getting shouted at. I'm just fuming. Get in the car park. Charging point doesn't work. I have to then move it to the next charging point. Then it finally starts working. Check the maps. We're going to be 15 minutes late for the wedding. So I'm there getting changed in the car. So I'm down to my kegs, getting changed. There's guys looking at me. One guy was looking at me probably a little bit too long for my liking, to be honest. Wife's gone into Starbucks to get changed. I get changed. Got this nice blue suit on, white shirt, gold tie. I'm feeling good. I'm like, do you know what? I'm just going to pay the £100. It was a £60 fine if you paid it within a week or something. So I was just like, you know, I'm just going to pay it.
Not back through that outfit.
So blue suit, white shirt, gold tie, gold, pocket square. Oh, mate, for me, you know, I look good. I look good for me. Like, it's relative. Smart. Nice. I'm going to say I look smart. So, yeah, got changed. But it's like, look, let's just pay the 60 quid. Forget about it. Now, I think I could have appealed, but forget about it. So I was like, okay. So we carry on. Get to the wedding. Windy as anything, as you know. Door nearly comes off. 10 minutes until the wedding. It's in this big farm barn conversion. We'll open the door. It's a black tie event. My mate hadn't told me. I was literally the only person there not dressed correctly. And I'm like 6'4", big guy, massive blue suit, gold tie. I just was advertising that, and I said, and my mate, he came up to me, he's like, "Oh, mate, you look great." I'm like, "Mate, why didn't you tell me?" He was like, "Oh, I forgot. Don't worry about it." He said, "But you look great. Don't worry about it." I'm like, "Mate, everyone here is at a black tie event, and I'm in a blue suit with a gold tie." Mate, so yeah, just terrible weekend. Terrible.
2 questions, Mike.
Go on then, mate.
Why did Mrs. Beaty decide to go into Starbucks to get changed and you thought, nah, doing it in?
Because I thought if we're going to the disabled toilets together, A, can I control myself? And B, do they think I can't control myself? So I thought I'd get kicked out. So I thought I'd just give the locals a bit of a show, because the thing is, the car that we've got, it's not tinted windows or anything, you know. Maybe he just thought I had nice tits, because, you know, they're phenomenal, mine, you know. He just wanted a good eyeful. So yeah, fuming. Absolutely fuming.
I mean, this is an additional question. We're very peaceful here, but we're going with it. They're not having male and female toilets in Starbucks, just a disabled toilet. Is that what's going on here in Sheffield? I mean, Yorkshire's a weird place, the fact, we know that.
Well, I think it's the fact that she just wanted the space, you know, spread out. And
well, it's meaning for you, you know, but, you know, if you want to be an exhibitionist, Mike, crack on.
I just saw the opportunity and thought, right, legally, I'm not sure I can do this, but I'm going to do it anyway. I'm DBS checked, so I was all right.
I think it follows the same rules as if you're in your own house and someone's looking. If you stay there, like if you hide, you're the weirdo. If you stay there and they'll carry on looking, they're the weirdo. That's fine. I was just wondering when did you overcome
it? Well, I was just the one thing I was wondering when I was getting changed in the car, did I accidentally flash the lights and I thought I was trying to do something else? That was the only other thing it could have been. But no, the wedding was good. It was an open bar, which is great. There wasn't much signal, so I was trying to watch the Rovers game. I was just on the slide, get all the updates and stuff. And then watch the game in the morning. But yeah, hate Sheffield now. Hate Sheffield. So, but anyway, we move on, Mark. We move on. So, with something that we touched upon last week, you had the forum. So, did you want to? Our listeners love it when you manage to break down the forum, because obviously the minutes come out, but there's quite a lot to digest there. So if you could summarise for us.
Yeah. So there was loads of bits and bobs of stuff. And I do get people that pick up on things like, why are they talking about Strongbow? There's bigger issues. I've said this 100 times now. Yes, we have added little bits of any other business. It's about supporter experience. So yes, we do add those in, but they are literally 20 seconds of a job when the main thing is talked about are the bigger issues. So the way that we're trying to just run the forum, we're just changing it a little bit, where we're trying to have one big focus and then other areas won't be covered as much. So we're trying to do it in line with, obviously, when they have their deadlines of things have to be submitted. So we did ask about the financial issues, just for a quick update. They said it's going to be ongoing for a while, they think. They do think the court case is potentially going to be adjourned again. For the way anyone who doesn't know the way that the Indian government works and the Indian legal system, basically, I'll cut it into a really short version. They schedule about 45 hearings that day, and they might get through 30, and then the judge has got to be somewhere else. And you would think that those 15 that are remaining get put into the top 15 of the next ones. No, they just get put in any old order again. And that's what keeps happening. And then they bung it down the road for another 3-4 months. They assure us it has no impact, and they assure us that they have asked for transfer funds, and they're drawing up a list of targets. So, again, I stress the point that from my personal point of view now, I think that we need to take advantage of the FFP room for manoeuvre that we've got, because we won't have that forever. We asked about John Park, and they said basically it's a very data-driven process we've got now. They said it was a very mutual decision. John Park didn't feel that he could carry on working the way that the club want to work. Steve Parker said, he talked to him that day of the forum, and he said, it's absolutely not falling out at all, but we just felt that we were working in a very different way than he wanted to. Someone quite rightfully was that discussed before he came in? He said, yeah, absolutely it was. But we thought that we would be able to, find a common ground and a way. Actually, it might be a happy balance of, well, we find the stats, we find the videos, you go and cast your experienced eye over it. And it's just not working like that in reality. Rudy was there, and we asked Rudy about the transfer window. He said that what will tend to be the way that we work in transfer windows he talked about not being emotive. So he said that whilst fans will get emotive, that the club cannot get emotive. So by that, he means that we have to have a long-term view of transfers. So if we are if we're where we are now in the playoffs and we are to January and we're going, what, if we could get, I don't know, an Archer on loan, but it's 4 million loan fee, I reckon that's going to keep us in the playoffs. They're not going to make decisions based on that at all, based on where they are in the league. They're going to make business decisions based on long term. What do we need to do? What positions do we think we can improve? How much is this player right now? Is this player at his peak value? Yes, we'll sell him. So it won't, where they've been bitten before with not selling Rothwell is probably the common example in the January window. So, for example, if Tyree Stolen's not going to sign a deal and somebody comes in, they ain't going to go, oh, well, we're in the top 6. We can't sell him now. I think, we won't see that situation with Rothwell happen again. Someone comes in and bids 4 or 5 million for somebody like Joe Rothwell last time, whether that's Tyree Stolen or not, and they feel that's the max value, then he will go. He said that summer transfer windows are the times that they will be a little bit more ambitious because they can bring somebody in. So Hashi, for example, they can bring them in, work with them, and they've got time to play in pre-season and learn. If they're going to bring somebody in January, actually, they pretty much need to have an immediate impact or they need to be a longer-term signing. So that tends to mean that they will either be UK-based or they'll be in a league that's pretty comparable to the Championship in terms of intensity and things like that. So that was quite interesting. We talked about, the main thing was about season tickets. So we forward a proposal of season tickets and said what I'm giving my paper about, what we would like to happen. Whether they listen to it or not is another view. But basically what we identified as the current issues, if you like, are we've got less than 10,000 season ticket holders. Attendances are massively lower than that during midweek. Walk-on supporters, so those coming just game by game, is around 3,000 a game. Now, I haven't had a look at the data, obviously, but I'm going to suspect that if we are getting consistently around 3,000 supporters game by game, that's not going to be 3,000 one week and a brand new 3,000 the week after and a brand new 3,000. So why are they not converting to a season ticket? Very few supporters purchase a season ticket after the season starts. It's kind of a, it's not like where you might buy a shirt 2 months into the season or it's nearly Christmas. You either buy a season ticket or you don't, generally. Supporters, I think, and when we've talked to other fans, compare the buying of a season ticket to a big family purchase. So one of the big things I was talking about was when you're sat down in the summer and you've got Mrs. Beaty there and you're having a family discussion. If you're looking at buying a season ticket, it's a £300-400 discussion. That's if there's only you going. If it's a family going, it could be upwards of £1,000. That's the difference between a mortgage payment. That's the difference between a deposit for a car, going on holiday. For me, they need to turn that discussion for some people into, right, Mike, you're not going to the Rovers. We can't afford it anymore. Well, actually, I tell you what I'll do. It's only 30 quid a month. I'll knock Netflix on the head. I didn't want the gym membership anyway. The kids don't need Disney Plus. All these kind of things is a different discussion. All of a sudden it feels very different. And again, if they put the season ticket up £30 a season, it feels big. If they put it up £2.50, a month, you don't notice it as much. And then I know that local teams have higher season tickets, but other local teams have lower prices and significantly higher season ticket holder rates. So they took that one. So my example was Bolton. They're in League One. They've got over 15,000 season ticket holders and they're quite a bit lower than us price. The other one was Preston. The club came back about Preston and said they do have a lower adult price, but in every other area, I think it was every other area, certainly most areas, they're more expensive. So that was fair enough. But what we did was say, basically, we think personally, so we looked at the finances of it and basic maths, didn't go into it in too much detail, but we said we're 9,141 season ticket holders was the last figure they gave us. And that's bringing in on what we were saying as the average of, we put they gave us the breakdown of how many adult season ticket holders, how many seniors last time, and we went through that. What we were saying is if you get those 3,000 walk-ons to convert, and I'm guessing price is one of the factors for them, not saying for everybody, but for those, then actually, if you made it an average of a £250 season ticket for adults, for example, that would take you over the threshold of what we're getting now if they're converted to season ticket holders. And my proposals and the proposals of the forum were one of the other things that I think the club need to do, and they need to get smarter at, is some teams play the game. And by that, I mean, when you see these the images that go out on social media and it'll say cheapest season ticket, and it'll have QPR up there and it'll be £200. That ticket is probably only 3 or 4 of them available, and it's restricted view behind a pillar at Loftus Road. For me, Rovers need to get smarter, because the moment they don't do that kind of thing and they appear 19th on the list and it's one of the most expensive, they get hammered. And all that hard work they do about marketing season tickets is gone. And I think they need to use the Riverside, because let's be honest, the Riverside's a shed. You've got restricted views. The front rows you get soaked. So those restricted views, to me, should be on sale really cheap. And actually, we would then see if price is a barrier, because I sit in the Blackburn End because I want the atmosphere. Some people sit in the family stand because that's where the family stand is. So the rest of the people sit in the Jack Walker, generally speaking, because they want the view, they want the experience of sitting there. People sit in the Riverside because that's where they've always sat. But I think people might go into the Riverside if it was significantly cheaper. I think that could be that could be an entry level, because you get an entry level facilities. So nobody else is going to complain. I'm not going to move from the Blackburn End to the Riverside unless the price is massively different. You're not moving from the Jack Walker for the same reasons you're not moving from the family stand. So I think they're missing a trick there. I know they did it this year. They're not £30 off for the first 300. I think that needs to be a real entry level. And we proposed a massive cut to the tickets. And not just because we're saying that everyone... and the argument they come back with all the time is, well, when we make it 15 quid a game, no one comes. I get that. My argument was those 3,000 people that are turning up week in, week out almost, but buying game by game, ironically, are probably making the club more money than they would be if they bought a season ticket. But park that for a second. You need to convert them. And that must be either because they can't afford to pay it up front, or they're not willing to commit that amount of money to a season ticket. So if we convert them, it would actually take the money, the quick maths, would take the money back above the season ticket figure they're getting now. The other things that we looked at was about making it monthly. So Hull do that. The concerns that they've got about that is how they budget. What if people cancel their season ticket? What if you have a bad start and people go, sack that? Do you actually still have a season ticket cut-off? And if you don't, which was one of the ideas, let's just have them on sale all season, and you pick it up like a 12-month membership, then, are you going to sit and wait at home and go, well, I'm just going to see how many signings they get? And actually, I'll just see how the first couple of games go. And then, how do they budget then? Was one of their concerns. We then had a few other little ideas. So one of the issues at the minute is seemingly with fans buying concession tickets, and there's the whole palaver about getting in the ground. We said, just make it a Rovers passport, stick a photo on. Job done. And actually, if you're a 16-year-old, what ID do you have? And is your mum and dad going to let you take your passport out? Probably not. So, yeah. And then again, midweek, they need to make it cheaper, because it'll encourage away supporters as much as anything. I'm just going to grab my notes, Mike, that I've chucked about here to see if there's anything else. Is there anything you wanted to pick up on that?
Yeah, well, while you're looking at your notes, I mean, I've just literally had a look at the ticket prices for other clubs. And the thing is all clubs are different, aren't they? And you can't compare one club to another based on the area, the demographic. And I feel like we're sometimes in competition with clubs we shouldn't be in competition with. We just need to find the balance that works for our demographic, our area. I said a couple of times before, you've got Manchester one side, Liverpool the other. You've got other clubs as well. We have to aim at Blackburn as a town. Try and get locals in as much as possible. The people that finish work and will come to games on a Saturday, they'll bring their kids and things like that. They need to look at that demographic. You can't just compare us to a London club or a Birmingham club or a Manchester club. I mean, obviously Manchester's got big clubs and so have Liverpool. I mean, you could talk about Tranmere, but our demographic is very, very different, and our catchment area is very different, and they need to adapt to that. And I don't like looking at other clubs because that's not what it's about. Ultimately, we are not filling Ewood Park, and we can't look at other clubs of how they've done it or anything like that. You can get ideas, but that's not our answer, and that's why we need people like yourself and the fans to throw some ideas at them. But it's not working. I mean, don't get me wrong. We haven't filled Ewood Park for years, even the championship winning season. It's not like we were filling it game in, game out. But something needs to change, and they need to find an answer. And at the moment, these aren't the answers.
Absolutely agree, and that's what they were saying. With this number in the championship, we've got one of the lowest in this and that. My argument is, but some of those teams, the team not a million miles away down the road only holds 21,000. So immediately they've got an advantage, because if we only held 21,000, is there going to start to be a supply and a demand thing? The Blackburn End's smaller. Are people going to buy a season ticket because they want to guarantee their seat in there? We don't have that currently, so that's one of the big things. We talked about the Dingle game and the allocation. There was some fans. It was split a bit. Some fans felt that they should have a similar allocation to what they gave us. Some felt that they should have, rinse them. Let's give them the full end and let's watch 7,500 of them crying. Ultimately, I think what's happened is there's a police element to it, where obviously it's no longer bussed in, and the cost of the police will become prohibitive at a certain point. So effectively, we wouldn't be making that much money for more fans coming. So, I don't think the police were overly keen on it anyway. But that said, I think if we probably weren't willing to pay the police bill to pay for Burnley supporters to come, which I'm not overly fussed about. We asked about the 150th anniversary, and there's a focus group on it. They said anyone who wants to join, who feels they've got something to really add, not just in terms of, I remember when this happened, and actual real concrete ideas that they want. There's loads of stuff that they're already looking at doing. They're looking at more events than you've ever seen before. But if somebody's got some really good ideas that they think, I remember when this happened, they're going right back into the archives to make some quite special events. Sounds really exciting. But if anyone's got any ideas, contact the club, and they've got a focus group running for it. You probably won't necessarily hear about, but if you think, I think I could really contribute to that, let them know. We asked about club kits and merchandise. Conversely to the season tickets, they have hit that sweet point of supply and demand. So people are buying them because they know they will sell out. They have got a lot more shirts on sale than they have previously. So just to give you an idea, last season's third shirt sold 2,396. This season's has sold 4,785. And when they want to buy more stock, it isn't a quick fix. There is not a quick turnaround for it. So they have to buy it in bulk. And what they don't want is to ever have stock left, because then what they start doing is people go, I'm going to wait till it goes on sale. And then they get back into that, which they used to have years ago. So they're reluctant to commit to an awful lot more. And actually, it's based on historical stuff. It's not just based on the previous year. They have a slight margin within that, which they did increase last year. So they're going to go again with the same number as this year, which means that they'll have a main order that gets flown in. They'll have an initial order that gets flown in with the club's kits, the players' kits. One is shipped in, and then they have another arrives in November, and then a tiny one extra in December just to top it up. And they can tweak that one slightly. The sort of, we need more home shirts or whatever. We asked about the Burnley game because it was behind closed doors, the under-21s. Apparently, there was a massive complaint about the disruption to the estate and stuff. We did make our point that we'd like to see that on Ewood, and if that's a problem, or on Accrington Stanley. And then the only other thing I would like to talk about is the Junior Fans Forum. So we've got a Junior Fans Forum up and running. So if anyone's a season ticket holder and an 1875 or a Junior Rovers member, we've now got a Junior Rovers member. Do you know what, Mike? They had their first meeting and they've come up with some real good ideas. I couldn't go, I was at work. I'm going to the one in January. But they've come up with some good stuff. From like daft things to like, we want chicken nuggets at the ground. What is going on? Why have we no chicken nuggets?
To be fair, I can get behind that. I think we need more chicken nuggets.
They've said they need loads of large flags. They don't know enough about the women's games. They want more stuff going on in the fan zone. They said, yeah, we've got a fan zone. It's great, but we want some activities going on in there. And then they also want, which I can't get on board with this, they want the players to have their own songs. So when they score, they want them to have not like a walk-on, but like an individual one that the player picks. I can't get on board with goal music. I'm sorry. But yeah, so loads that we talked about. Do you know what? The club are great. They've taken the whole proposal. They're going to take it back. They're going to have a look at it. There was even little bits to the proposal, though, Mike, where, and I'm going to shut up in a minute, but like the upper tier of the Darwin end, when they have the Rovers logo, it just takes the focus away from empty seats. And I watch some MLS games, and they've got real high-quality coverings. If you have low-quality coverings, it looks crap. But you think back to COVID, the idea was that you couldn't tell that the seats were there because the empty seats just looks... It hits you in the face. They need to do that in the top tier of the Blackburn end and maybe even reduce the capacity a bit and condense the crowds in the other areas, but with real high quality. Can you imagine 150th anniversary? The upper tier of the Blackburn end actually had a montage that was real, that kind of thing. It would take the focus away a bit rather than it just looking empty. Actually, Birmingham did it for a while, didn't they? When they had their certain areas of their ground out of use. I just think it looks better. And there is an element when you're an away fan. If you look on TV and it looks empty, you think, well, that's going to be a shit atmosphere. I'm not going to that away day. I'll wait for another. If it looks busier, it looks better, the atmosphere looks good, you're more likely to go to an away day. Might not affect home fans as much, but, we need that money from those away fans. Let's get rinsing them a bit.
Yeah, and it's not as if we can put massive sponsors up because you've got to have someone paying the money for that sponsorship, haven't you? And there's just no one out there willing to put that money in that we would probably ask for.
Yeah, I mean, you may have noticed that the Riverside's got a lot more Venky's sponsorship. There was no Venky's sponsorship once upon a time, and it is up there. And that's, part of the reason that we were able to send funds over because there was... an avenue to do that when there weren't other avenues to send money over from India. But yeah.
Well, no, we appreciate the update, Mark. Everyone loves the updates that you put out when the forum's there. It's all good information, and the more information we have, the better, because then you can make these informed decisions yourself. Because we can always go on X and moan about everything, but you guys are going out there. You're passing on everything that is being said, and you're getting the information, and now you're passing it back. And to be fair, the club do give you information to pass on to us, which is good. And the Junior Rovers thing, I think that's a really exciting thing because they are the ones you need to listen to, because we do that is the age group we need to tap into their, to use the term demographic again. We've got to tap into that demographic because, why is it that they're not coming to games? And, what can we do to make the experience better? Is it safer standing? Is it all of this? Is it cheaper tickets? Is it putting chicken nuggets on? Whatever. I think that's really good. So, no, I really appreciate that you've done that. And obviously, people watching on YouTube, comment down below things that you want added in. Mark reads everything, and it all helps when he goes to these forums, and put down below what you think needs to happen. It's all good stuff.
The next meeting is the 10th of February, all being well. Sometimes they change if there's a game that gets moved or whatever, but the plan will be then to talk about, obviously we'll touch on January transfer window, stuff like that, but the plan then will be to look at something that's going to be a big thing for the summer. So it will probably be a little bit more on season tickets, but if there's anything really pressing, to let us know, and we'll bring it up.
Brilliant. Well, cheers for that, Mark. And we're going to move on a little bit. We did have a question of the week from last week about our favourite players since 2000. We did mention a few last week. So it's who do you think was the best player to play for Rovers since the 2000? There's no rules on how you interpret this question. Go. So there's a few people that they've said, like, well, for Two-Guy, obviously, but shout out to Friedel and Duff. Two-Guy's getting a lot of mentions. Dunny, Janssen, or who else? Yeah, it tends to be Two-Guy. He's put Two-Guy. I think Two-Guy seems to be the one that's getting the most answers. Is that it's got to be just because of his Rovers time? Is there anyone you can think of that is, the best player that hasn't necessarily been the best player for Rovers, but they went on to do better things in your mind?
Yeah, I mean, out of those, the main two that you mentioned there, I go to Duff. I think he was, maybe not for Rovers, but he was the best player. I mean, do you remember when we read that team out, the UEFA Team of the Year that he was in? And that was unbelievable. If anyone's not seen that, I think it was 2002. FIFA Team of the Year, I think it was, after the World Cup. Just have a look at the team. And Damien Duff got in that right off the sort, and he was at Rovers. And I love Two-Guy, absolutely adore Two-Guy, but Damien Duff for me was something a bit special. He would have gotten pretty much any team in the world at that point. I think you've got to look at some of the players that we've had who've had some real quality. I mean, Andy Cole was a tremendous footballer. It's a shame how it ended at Rovers. He was probably more the 90s than the 2000s. He was starting to, he just over the hill a little bit there. I think Craig Bellamy, he's gone on to do some wonderful things. He's also gone on to let himself down and turn up at Turf Moor, but we'll scoot over that. Rocky Santa Cruz didn't really do much after us, but what a footballer. And then the other one would be Benny McCarthy. I think if Benny McCarthy had left us that summer after his first season, I'm not going to say down tools because he did at West Ham and he didn't really for us, but you definitely saw him. It was almost like a massive disappointment and you could see it visibly in him. And I think if he'd have gone to rejoin Mourinho at Chelsea, they'd potentially gone on to win Champions Leagues and things like that. We may well have been bringing him into the conversation at that point.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the two for me are Duff and Friedel. Friedel, just because I think he ended up becoming one of the top goalkeepers in the world, could I say, maybe? I think the goalkeeping connoisseur would mention him as just being that functional goalkeeper, because you need to remember at the time it wasn't about playing out from the back, it was just about being the solid goalkeeper. But for me, yeah, it is Damien Duff. He could have gone to anywhere in the world, and there was obviously talk of Barcelona and teams like that. He decided to go to Chelsea, but what a player he was. He's definitely the one for me. But comment down below who you think. So the best player since 2000 could be when they were at Rovers. They left and did bigger things, but not many people leave us and go on to bigger things, do they? They tend to peak with us. Look at Alan Shearer, he did nothing after leaving us. But that's another question. So we're on to the mailbag. We've had quite a few. We've had quite a few this week, and there was one from Ben that I know you have answered a little bit on X, Mark. I know we won't, but I would give Eustace full control of the January window. He has flair players like Cantwell and Dewberry running seriously hard yards. He's a special gaffer. Special mention to Gay. He came on and did exactly what we want from him when 1-0 up away from home. So your comment back was, what is it about giving Eustace control you think would help? I agree with your comment there, but do you want to expand a little bit? I mean, if he gets full control, what's he going to get?
It was a genuine question, really. I was trying to unpick what it was he was saying. And actually, this comes back to the forum. So we asked Rudy to just clarify again the way it works, because obviously we've no John Park. And in the Q&A, John Eustace alluded. Did he allude? I got a feeling from him that he wanted a bit more control, but he certainly said he hasn't got the final say. And what Rudy said was, that basically the way it works now is they've got systems not dissimilar to the Football Manager system, I suppose, but there's Y Scout, there's loads of others. And what they basically do is they say, right, they sit down with John Eustace and Adam Owen as him, and they'll say, right, what are we looking for in the squad right now? So I think one of the things that they will obviously be looking for is a pacey wide player. So they will put in, right, what does that player need to do? And they basically filter it down. It's like a massive spreadsheet, and they filter the players down. So the player needs to be able to do a certain amount of high-intensity sprints, all these kind of things. And then what they do is filter that down, and at the top of that list, because it's going to be goal involvements on there as well, will be Mo Salah. And then they'll scroll down until they find a player that they think, oh, either who the hell is this, or, well, he's realistic. And then they'll filter that list down to a shortish list. They'll go on their, let's be honest, they've got Y Scout and things like that now is like YouTube for football nerds. Imagine playing Football Manager and you find Yuki or Hashi, you've never heard of him before. They click on him and they have footage from all of his last games. They have footage of montages that they can narrow down of him shooting, footage of one-on-ones. So then somebody's job is to scour and sit and analyze through that. And then they present these top 5, say, to Eustace. And they've already done a little bit of background work on what they might cost. So they're not going, well, Mo Salah's the best one, so we'll put him on the list because it's absolutely pointless. But they'll put 4 or 5. Eustace will sit in a meeting with them. They'll all watch. And if he says, do you know what, number 4, I do not want, they're not going to go for him. Actually, at the beginning of this process, though, what they did say is that he's been rumoured, hasn't he? Let's say he says Dembele at the beginning of the season. I want him added to that list. I think he will do that job. They will add him to the list in terms of filtering him down. But if he doesn't bring the stats that they need and the data that they need, they discard him. Because what they're saying is, well, you might like him, but he's not giving us. What they were saying was the lifespan of a manager is 18 to 24 months on average. We need players that fit our team beyond what our manager wants. But then basically they sit in this recruitment meeting for the top 5, and Eustace will say, don't like number 4. Number 2, really like him. Probably my first choice. Number 5, yeah, I'd be happy with him as well. Okay, cheers, John. Off they go, and they go and negotiate within the budget that they've got. So for John Eustace to have full control, we're going back to what we talked about. Sir Alex Ferguson days, Dalglish days, Souness days, where they're ringing their mate up in Scotland and going, I need a left back. I need him to be really tough tackling. He needs to be a good lad. I've got a couple of million to spend. Who do you recommend? That can't happen anymore. And actually, those players are not, you're not going to find those gems for a fraction of the price. The gems for us are going to come the way that Brighton do it, the way that Brentford do it. Yeah, that's how we're going to find them. And what happens is people think that Brentford and Brighton find these players that no one else has found. They don't. What happens is Liverpool see those same players on their list, like McAllister. But actually, one of the other parameters that Liverpool have in is, can they do it in big games, or have they done it over a period of time in a league that we need them to do it in? Brighton can't play in that playing field. So they go, well, actually, we can take a risk that they've done it in the French League too. Whereas Liverpool are saying we're not taking that risk. Rovers are taking more risks. Well, we're willing to take a risk on someone who's done it in the J League, in Austria, and that kind of thing. So if Eustace has full control, how can he do all of that work?
Well, that's exactly what I was about to say. It's so time consuming.
So what
contracts
I'm asking,
are more complex. Deals are more complex. You just haven't got the time.
And that's why I say I get that for me, he should have the final say. So they should go and work out how much these players are going to cost, and he should be the one that goes, number 2, please. A bit like he's on blind date. But there's an old reference for you. But he kind of does have the say in a way, because if he says number 2 and they go, and they all disagree on number 2, then all right, he won't. But if he says number 2 and they're going, yeah, any of them's fine. But if he says, no, I do not want number 3, absolutely not, no way on earth, for whatever reason, they're not going to sign him. So he does have, probably the biggest say I would say. But then finances will play a role, the stats will play a role, the data will play a role.
But the trouble is, it's like you said, it's not a Blackburn thing that we're not letting Eustace do this. This is just the way football's gone. You'd have to go quite low down the footballing pyramid now,
exactly,
to have a manager that has full control, and even then they probably don't. So the game's just changed. There's too many variables nowadays. It's not a simplified game. You know, the athletic side of it as well, injury history. Back in the day, you weren't really quite as bothered. You know, you just strapped it up, you carried on, you played, and if you got 6 to 12 months out of the guy and he did a job, you were happy. Whereas now it's all about sell on and so on and so forth. There's just so many variables. It can't be done by one man. So we've discussed in the past about it, but I just thought it was a nice question to kick us off on. Another one as well from Tim, saying I've just finished watching the Welcome to Wrexham TV series, which was great. It got me thinking that Rovers have a lot to shout about on and off the pitch. Their academy, community work, our rich history, founder members, etc. Would you like to see Rovers in a documentary? Right, so I love sports documentaries. If you name it, I've watched it. I've probably watched it multiple times, from Last Dance to the new NASCAR one to all the football ones. In fact, I actually thought of Sunderland Till I Die when you was just mentioning the scouting, because I don't know if you've watched it, but he says, what's Zlatan Ibrahimovic doing on this list? And I've watched them all. And I think sometimes it can be quite dangerous. Like the American football one, they've got quite a lot of rules because you don't want to give too much away of how you do things. But I think we would be a club that is actually set up perfectly right now to have a documentary that other people would be interested in. The fact that obviously you've got the Indian government situation, you've got the Venkis. Not only do we have a rich history of the past, but we have quite a checkered history, modern history as well, with everything that's gone on with ownership, the stuff behind that, the fact that we've gone down 2 tiers and now we're coming back up. So I actually would love it. I think a lot of people would be quite interested in what's happening because of the history of the club, but because of how the Venkis are, because of how things have gone, I don't think it would ever happen. I think that they're far too private. I think that they've been bitten quite a bit about what's happened in the past, and I don't think it would ever happen. But would I love to see it? Damn right I would. I think it'd be absolutely brilliant to see behind the scenes. I think we'd see a lot of positives there. And to be honest, I think the only negative stuff would probably come from the what's happening over in India. What about you?
Very similar. I'd absolutely love it. I actually think, obviously I'm fortunate enough to sit in some of these meetings. I've been to the training ground. I'm incredibly fortunate. And there are times where I try and say to them, I think you need to say more about this. And if people understand more, then they can see both perspectives. They might not agree, but they understand how a decision comes to fruition a bit more. I can't see it happening. I know that there's things that Venkis have done in the local town that people are desperate to shout about because they're incredible. And they won't let them.
Why is that?
And I also, because they don't.
What do you think it is?
They don't want to be seen to be. I think particularly because of everything that happened initially, they don't want to be seen as, they think it will just become negative publicity. So, for example, I believe, and this is not through the forum, but I do believe they put a significant amount into Blackburn Cathedral to help it when it was struggling financially. And that wouldn't ever come out in the paper because they would just, I think they believe, and this is a lot of think and believe, but that people would turn it and say, oh, they're just doing it for trying to buy us to make us think that they're good. And I think people are in that place with Venkis. They're incredibly private as well, but they wouldn't have to necessarily feature in it, if we're being honest. The day-to-day workings of the club would be great. Now, I think the closest we could get is we obviously had the Q&A with John Eustace. I asked Rudy if he'd do one on scouting, how it works, because there's so many football nerds out there. I'd love that Go and sit out. It works. And this is how, if you turn around to one of us and say, right, what position do you think we need? Oh, we need a left winger. Right. What attributes do you want? I want him to be really quick, score goals, filters the list, shows how it works. That'd be amazing. I'd love to go and see that. And he said, yeah, bit busy at the minute, but yeah, I will do. So great. Please do. But yeah, I think the club sometimes are too guarded, and actually not saying anything leaves a void. And they've been guilty of that in the past. So can I see them putting themselves out warts and all? No. But I think you're right. I think the 150th year, they could market it on the back of the, was it called The English Game? Effectively, a lot of it about Rovers. Perfect time to do it. It'd be amazing. Our academy is amazing. Our recruitment side of it is really good and really interesting. John Eustace is doing some amazing work. Yeah.
There's so much that would go into it actually coming to fruition that it wouldn't happen, because if you went... The only reason Wrexham got it was because of the people that bought them. Anything other than that, they're not becoming the famous club. Same with Blues, to be honest. I wouldn't be surprised if Blues do a similar one because of their ownership. At the end of the day, it's who would pay for it, and if it went out, how popular would it be? I don't know. The Sunderland Till I Die one, that was, Netflix must have been rubbing their hands when Sunderland dropped again, because if you're following a club that's just got relegated, you need them to either absolutely storm it and come back or absolutely tank it. They must have been rubbing their hands when Sunderland tanked it, because it just made the whole drama of it. So I'm going to watch it again, I think, after talking about it, because you need to have either just unlimited success, and it's just like bam, 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 look how amazing we are, and we're back in the big time, everyone's happy. But to tank, well, that gives you the second season, and then to struggle the second season, it gives you the third season. They got lucky. But yeah, I would love to see it. I really would. And I think every single Rovers fan would. Whether other people would, I don't know. But moving on, I've just got a quick one to ask you, actually, before we do move on, that Ben Eccles has messaged today. Just a quick one from you. Reckon they'll open the Blackburn End upper for the derby?
Well, if they sell enough tickets beforehand, they will do. It's always available to be open, but they're not going to start opening it until they sell the other areas. So I think the Blackburn End's nearly sold out. I believe the Jack Walker's selling really, really well. The end section near to the Darwin End in the Riverside, don't know quite why, but that's become extremely popular. I think there's some netting at the front, so that makes it look like it's sold more. But yeah, if they start selling the Riverside well, then yeah, absolutely they will.
Cool.
That will be some statement, because it's 33 quid a ticket, so it's not cheap.
No, that'd be good. And last question for the mailbag. Ross Gibson says, is Sondre Tronstad the most underrated player in the Championship? Now, this is a really difficult question, because at the end of the day, I don't know many other players in the Championship that I would say are underrated, because if I know about them, they're probably rated. So
good point.
I think the fact that we've gone through, since we signed him, we was quite worried at the start. I remember talking about him, and we was just like, well, what's he offering? He's not really offering anything. And at the time, he didn't look like he was much. He didn't seem to be one that was really developing his game to what we needed it to be. But then, bang, suddenly he is this. It's clicked with him, and he's found his feet. He's comfortable. You've mentioned his dad a couple of times. His dad's a bit of a character, isn't he? And would you say that he's one of the most underrated players in the Championship? I mean, is he better than Rodri?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that is my worry. Is people have talked about Adam Wharton going to City, but Pep's got to be watching Sondre right now and thinking, this will solve all my problems. Yeah. Yeah, he probably is, isn't he? He is, because naturally the role he plays is one of them that goes completely under the radar, other than maybe his own team fans, but sometimes even by them, but certainly by people on the outside. But it won't be going by the radar, under the radar from opposition managers. because they'll be watching and thinking, geez, how do we get around him? Right, well, he's playing on the right. We need to start working on the left, because his reading of the game is just spectacular. It makes it look like he just never needs to break out of a jog. Yeah.
And I think that's the
like
thing.
to
When
see him.
the things you're saying there, sorry, Mark, the things you're saying there,
Yeah.
you can't just suddenly come in and do that. The game is different. The league's different, and he's learnt the league, hasn't he? And that's why he can do that.
Yeah, and I think one of my concerns is if he did go somewhere, that's very difficult to replace. Very, very difficult, because you're talking about somebody who's got enough experience as well to play that role, and they usually cost a lot of money. What I was just going to say was, I'd like to see, I know you can't have everything, but I would like to see him just have a few more shots, because he gets in some really dangerous positions on the edge of the box by the nature of the way we play. And I'd just like to see him be a little bit braver. You know, if he shoots and it goes over the bar, it's fine. But it can go off someone's ass and end up going in. That's the one thing I would say. I'm not expecting him to make these lung-busting runs forward, but he does get in some good positions. I'd like to see him have a ping. So tomorrow night or tonight, if you're watching this on the way to Hillsborough, Sonny, just have a little ping. And we know, Mike, that Sonny Tronstad watched our story on Instagram before the game at weekend. So I might try and clip this up and just get it out. Sonny, shoot, man. Come on.
Just have a dip, son. Have a dip. You never know. No, he's definitely turned into a solid player, as they all have. I mean, he's like you say, he's reading the game. He's superb, but he is, whether he's underrated, I don't know anymore, because we are raving about him and fans are raving about him. The social media is. I think the thing is we're just not a club that people are talking about at the moment, and I like it. I don't want them to talk about us, and I think when they do start talking about us and say this run continues and we're still in with a shout in a couple of months' time, I do think that people will be talking. Whether he's underrated, I don't think he is anymore. I think everyone now is starting to figure out that he's an extremely important player for us.
I think you're right. I think as a team, we're probably underrated at the moment. And people are still thinking, oh, Blackburn will fall away. What are they doing in sixth? They'll fall away. We may well do. But he kind of falls within that at the moment, doesn't he?
Yeah, and I'm not ready to start talking about mid-season slumps and winter slumps. I'm just enjoying this as it is, and hopefully next week we'll be talking about some more positive points. But Mark, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. It's great being a Rovers fan, and I'm enjoying it.
I'm absolutely loving life right now, Mike. I just want you to try and search your phone, because if you have saved that audio, if you were drunk enough to not know where you've saved it, if you can find that, that's going to be special. But we will we'll fire this out. You'll listen to it. There's a match preview to Sheffield Wednesday. Hopefully, I can do one for Luton, but you never know. It depends if anyone decides to rock up. But if not, thanks for listening, because the figures last week were unbelievable, weren't they? So,
well, that's the thing. And, as we round off another podcast, we did want to say thank you to everyone for supporting us. Like Mark just said, the numbers are going well. And I know that, the fact that the club are doing well, we do well. And when the club falls away a bit, we fall away a bit. We'll always be here. But the comments have been unreal, and we do really appreciate it. And we've had some high praise in the comments. We do read everything that you put, positive, negative. We read everything. It gives us ideas on what you want to listen to, and so on. And it keeps us going, to be honest, because without you guys listening, obviously there's no point. We may as well just make it a phone call each week just for me and Mark. But, and we do know we have ads on YouTube now. There's a few people complain, but it does help support the channel. And it will mean better content for us, for you, and anyone else that watches when we can start getting players on here. But keep liking, subscribing, commenting to the chat on the channel, and sharing amongst friends and family. It all really helps. But we hope you have a good week, and hopefully next time we're all celebrating another couple of Rovers wins. But we'll see you next time.